Alright, welcome to Lab 9. So this one is all about recursion, and you'll be doing similar things to what we were talking about in class. Alright, so go ahead and get that starter code as you do, and you should see these three files here. Okay? Recursivefuncs.cpp, recursivefuncs.h, and testrecursivefuncs.cpp. You will be working on this file. Okay? So the first thing that you're going to do, the first problem that you're going to solve, is finding palindromes. Okay, so I just want to remind you as to what a palindrome is. It's when you have a word that reads the same forward and backwards. So ABA, it's the same forward as it is backwards. It's still ABA, right? Same with like AA, same forward and backwards. And race car is like the one that everybody uses for as an example, right? It's the same forwards and backwards. So those are all palindromes. And also, you're going to make a function that detects them. Hint, hint. And also, I want you to consider anything with like extra spaces as well, a palindrome still. Extra spaces and capitalization. So for example, this string here with A, B, and then a bunch of spaces and a capital A, that's still ABA, okay? You're going to have to like whittle it down to that because we want to consider this to be a palindrome, okay? That's the trick. That's the hard little bit. All right, so, and then you have like race car. This is still a palindrome even though there's capitalization and spaces. You should get rid of those before you check whether or not something's a palindrome. Okay, yeah, so what you're going to do is write a palindrome checking function, and it's going to be in two parts. Well, so it's really two palindrome functions, but one does most of the work. All right, so first you're going to make a helper function that cleans up a string. Okay, you're going to get rid of the spaces, you're going to get rid of the capitals, and then give it to the real recursive function. Okay, that will be called isPalindromeRecursive, and that's actually going to go and check if something is a palindrome. So if I just go to recursivefuncs.h, this is the main function that the users are going to see, but oops. But when you go and implement it, it's two parts. It's got this hidden function that's really going to do a lot of the work. Okay, so you will be doing isPalindrome, which is going to clean up the string that is given to you. Okay, you clean that up, pre-process it, and then you're going to call this isPalindromeRecursive function. All right, this one's going to get a nice string that's all pretty without any capitals or spaces, and this one's going to do the real palindrome checking work. Okay, and it'll return true if the string that it was given was a palindrome. And you're going to use that result in this original function to return true or false. Okay? So if the original string without the capitals and the spaces was a palindrome, you return true. Otherwise, you return false. So you really just use this result after you clean up your string. Okay? That's the idea. So now let's talk about how you'll do this recursively. All right? So the idea with the recursive function is to find a smaller palindrome checking problem inside of the bigger one. So if you were given race car as your input to the function, you need to figure out if race car is a palindrome. Can you find a smaller palindrome inside of this one? And I think you can. This is the next smaller one between the A's. You see that? If you chop off a letter on the beginning and the end, you'll have a smaller string to check that may or may not be a palindrome. Okay? So that is how I want you to think about your recursive case. You'll like find the smaller string and see if that's still a palindrome. And if that's a palindrome and the two characters at the end match, then the whole thing was a palindrome. Okay, so that's the secret. And then there will be some base cases, more than one, because strings can be either even length or odd length. And you're going to have to ask the question, like, when do I immediately know whether something's a palindrome? Okay, those will be your base cases. You don't have to do any extra work, any recursive work. Okay, so get that palindrome checking problem done. So you're going to implement this function, that's going to do the recursion, and this one is going to call that after pre-processing the string. And then you have two more to do. Okay, two more recursive problems. The next one is sum digits. So you're going to sum the digits of a number. For example, the sum of all the digits in the number 1,234 is 10 because 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, that's 10. Okay, that's the idea. You're going to pick out every little digit and sum all those digits up. Okay, so here's a nice graphical hint for the recursive case. And oops, my bad, this is the better recursive case. It's easier to break down a number into the last digit and the first three. That's what it should be for the recursive case. Okay, so just remember that it's this instead of the other one that I had before, and now we will I'll cut back to myself in the past explaining the rest of the lab. Okay, and then finally we have C-string length. Are you ready? So string length right here, you're given a C string, just like we were doing in class, and you're going to find the length of it, okay? So maybe you're going to find the length of hello. How do you break that down into finding a smaller string length problem? Well, here's a smaller string. Just take everybody but the first one, yeah? That's the trick. And so here is another smaller version of the same problem, which will return 4. You get to assume that it does. And then you worry about solving the length of the original string, which was just one more character. You see that? Think about the base case. When do you know the answer, the length of the string immediately? Things like that. But that will be, that will be your final challenge. Okay? So get these working. These 3 functions have to all be recursive. This first one will do the preprocessing and then call the recursive palindrome function. Okay? So yeah, just functions, no classes this time, just some practice with recursion. All right. So I think that's all I have for you. The only file that you're going to touch is recursivfuncs.cpp. So that's what you're going to turn in, and I've made a ton of tests for you. Okay? So here's one that tests a bunch of palindromes, some digits, and then finally string length. So if you get all of these passing, if you see passed all over the place, you are done. Otherwise, take a look at which test you failed and figure out what was going wrong. Okay? So that is that, and I think that's all I have for you. So good luck with this. Let me know if you have any questions. Please yell at me. And yeah, I will see you next week.